Well, welcome back into the studio, creative friends. I am getting ready to do something that's become, at least over the last 4 years, a tradition. So prior to 2021, I art journaled on my channel, but in all different journals. I just plucked journals up, and what I found was that was a bit challenging for me to look back and see. It wasn't a good glimpse of where I've come, because those journals still have empty pages in them, and I haven't finished them, and I don't know when things were created. I have to go look on my channel to see, because I didn't, of course, date them. So starting in 2021, I started to do an art journaling series. That doesn't mean I didn't art journal outside of that journal for that year. It just meant that was something I went to every single month. And it's always been a really good glimpse at where I was at in my art process, in my art journey, if you will. And that started in 2021, which was a series I called 12 and 12 for 30. And it was, here is the playlist on YouTube. And I'll link it in the upper right hand corner for you. So the 12 and 12 for 30 minutes, I did 1 page a month, so 12 pages in 12 months. For 30 minutes. I gave myself a time limit, and I worked in this, I think this is a Diane Reevely journal, and on these pages I did not care for the pre-bound. This is a perfect binding, so it makes it so when you do mixed media there's no room to grow. And it was super gator mouth. And then this paper I did not care for. It's really slick. It does not absorb liquid well. I found it very challenging, as well as working for 30 minutes was incredibly challenging. So I ended up pulling those pages out at the end of that year and bound it after the fact. That journal then went on to sell. That journal, when I finished it, I took it to the gallery that I was at, the SAG, Southern Arizona Artists Guild Gallery, and put it up for sale there, and it did sell. But you can see that journal, I do have a flip through of that in that playlist. In 2022, I created a tissue covered, soft cover art journal, and it was my year of mixed media menagerie. So I did the monthly mixed media menagerie challenge, and you can learn all about that at this playlist, and I'll link it up in the upper right hand corner for you, as well as down below, like I will all of these. So in that one, I worked through that challenge. It was a monthly challenge that they did, and I worked in that. Now, I don't have the physical art journal because that one also sold. So that was 2022. And then we moved to 2023, and I created the Clean Slate Journal, which was a paper bag journal. And it was like you had a clean slate. Whatever was on your paper, you were starting fresh each month. And I made kits of this for people to make their own and work out of. I also showed you how to create it on the making video, which is listed in the playlist as well. And this I filled it with a bunch of different papers, different vintage papers that I had in stock. And I worked through this for 2023. Then 2024, I decided I wanted to increase the size of my art journal and try a hardcover. It's not generally the route I go because of what happened exactly here, which was gator mouth. We have super gator mouth. I will also list here what it looks like, the playlist for the year of the book. This was like I said, I used the cover of an art journal, of a yearbook as my cover. And I created 2 of these art journals. This was the second one, and I decided this was the one I was going to journal in for the year. And similar to Big Bertha, I will link Big Bertha up above and in the description box. And it was a large format magazine. So I wanted to kind of come back to that a little bit and increase the size. Filled it with under paper and that kind of thing. I did make kits available, and I still have a couple of those left. I think there's a little bit more than a couple. I think there's a few of them left. And then I showed people how they could make their art journal. So I created a tie thinking that, yes, this in fact will also have gator problems like the other hardcover journal that I've created. This is the one we're working in this year. It's the self-care journaling. It follows a word of the year for me was self-care, and part of that has always been in my past is to do journaling, creative writing, writing prompts that I do writing in. So that's what this has been. It is a soft cover made with fabric, and then I once again use under papers. Some papers in here that I've used are papers that my granddaughter June arted on, did finger painting on. So all the journaling is somehow integrated into the page. So this I'm still working in, and we'll finish out the year on this. Now, I want to talk a little bit before we start creating the actual journal for my 2026 art journaling series. For this art journal, I am going to be creating again a soft cover journal using a paper bag. So I have pre-cut, this is a standard size Starbucks bag. I've got tons of them. I have literally just cut away, pulled out the handle, and opened up the tail end of the bottom of the bag. I'm leaving it doubled up. It adds strength. I'm going to be covering this with fabric. I already did create my pages. These are made out of gel prints, under paper, tissue fabric is used. There are vintage papers like this right here. So there's some pages that have some kind of illustration that are vintage, then under papers, maps or plats. This gel print. This was a gel print. And it's going to have 2 signatures. This is tissue fabric. This I will link a video down below on how I made this tissue fabric. But every journal will have a piece of this in it, not necessarily this one. It has music, sheets, under papers. This one's a little bit heavier. This is another gel print, and there are, I think I counted 15 full-size 2-page layouts in here, so you could work through the year. Now I'm going to be making a very limited supply of these when I make mine. The covers won't be finished, but they will have fabric on them, and those will be for sale. Plus I'm going to be making kits that look just like this. You'll get the kit, which will be the fabric, the paper bag, and the inside pages already folded and collated. You can change that out, of course, for what you like. So basically all the pages are gel prints. Each signature has a gel print in it. Underpapers, a variety of different underpapers. There'll be at least one tissue fabric piece in there, and there will be a children's book or some kind of book page, vintage book page with illustration on it, and there will be either a map or a plat that will be in there, and a gel print in each signature. So, and then a music sheet will be in there as well, a vintage music papers. So I'm gonna go through and start to get this created. So if you want to get a kit, you'll still have room, or if you want to create your own with your own supplies, then you'll have time to do that before we start in January 2026. So I wanted to give you a lot of wiggle room just in case you were wanting to follow along. This year's art journaling series is going to be based off an art journaling challenge called Keeping It Spicy, which is open to all of you if you so choose to take the challenge. And I'm going to talk a little bit as we go along here about what this is. But basically, the basics of it is it's an art journaling challenge where we monthly create in an art journal. It doesn't have to be the Keeping It Spicy art journal, but something that you prefer to create in. And I have created a list of monthly starting places. These are starting ideas. Some are prompts, some are inspiration you find, some are techniques, and all are always going to keep your art journaling fresh and keeping you engaged. So we'll work in this once a month for every month in the year of 2020. So let's get back to creating this art journal. I have folded this in half, and now I'm going to use my centering ruler, placing the 0 on that center point, and try and figure out what I want for the spacing between my two signatures to be. Once you've made that decision, you'll need to mark where those signatures are going to fall with a pencil, something to mark with, and go all the way down so that you can line those up with your ruler. Now that I have marked where the signatures are going to go, I need to make the decision on how much space I want between the end of the spine for the front cover and the end of the spine for the back cover. I have chosen to go with 1/4 of an inch, and that is where I'm going to fold. That is the spine space. So using my bone folder, I'm going to give that a really good crease, and I'm going to flip it over and do it from both sides, and then do it for the other side of the journal. So now you can see how much space is going to be taken up with the spine alone. This then will show us how much we have to cut off this bag, how much it is going over. So I'm lining my back signature up with its line, and I'm coming out 1/4 of an inch, and that is where I need to trim this bag down. And I'll do the same thing on the front. This is the first signature and the front cover. I line that up where I've marked my signature will go. I'm marking where I need to trim this bag down. And because I know that I'm going to have that fabric going over this, I'm not concerned about just trimming it with scissors and using a trimmer. You could use a trimmer if you want. It's a little thick, it might be challenging. So I'm just trimming that down with my scissors, and now this is the inside of our covers. So I'm gonna need to trim this out. I left this longer because I wanted, if you got one of the kits, I wanted you to be able to utilize the full bag if you wanted to. Instead of trimming it down, you could have utilized it. If you wanted to put more signatures in, then you could do that. So I am going to trim this down, and this is the back, the inside piece. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. I want some fray room. So what I'm gonna do is gonna be sewing this. If you don't have a sewing machine, then you can either hand stitch it. If you're not hand stitching it or sewing it, then you need to make sure you glue, cut this a little bit closer and glue it really well so it doesn't fray so much that it frays into where your bag is. So there's one piece, and I'm gonna do the other one while we're at it because it makes it easier. So next we need to make a template for this spine. All right, so I have a piece of, this is just a piece of watercolor paper, and I've cut it to fit, so the 1.5 inch width of my spine, I've cut it to fit in that spine, and it's as tall as the paper bag. So the first thing you want to do is mark the top. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to mark where your signatures are going to fall. So we want 1/4 inch in from each side so that there is a 1 inch space between. And it's at this time that you can really make some decisions. So now I'm thinking, I think I want to tighten this up a little bit more and not have it so close to this edge. So I think what I'm actually gonna do is I think I'm gonna come over to, so not this one, but here. I think that's where I'm gonna do. So I think I just want a little bit more room on this outside edge, so. Okay, and then we're gonna make a line. So that is equal parts. I like that a lot better. So then spine, I'm gonna fold it in half. This is gonna tell me where the center is. I prefer to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch for my bindings. So where that half mark is gonna be one of my holes. Now I know that I have a smaller piece, and so what you may want to do on yours is decide where that smaller piece is and kind of try and make so that your smaller piece gets caught in the binding more than just one hole, at least 2 holes. So I think that I want to come down. So usually I go 1 inch down, but I think I'm actually gonna go 2 inches down. I'm gonna go 1.5 inches down. So that would be right here. And that distance is 2.5 inches, and I'm gonna do the same thing going down, 2.5 inches. So this is our template. We're gonna come back to this after we get our cover ready. I'm going to be using some PVA glue to glue this down. It is pH neutral, so it is archival, and it's what they make for book binding, so it's very strong. You do not have to use PVA glue. I would not use a glue stick, and I would not use a tape, a glue tape. It will not hold this properly. You will get wrinkling. I would use something that it can be thinned down. I'm gonna get my glue ready. So I've gotten my glue a little bit watered down already, but I'm gonna add more water to it. I just need it to be just a hair thinner than it already is. PVA glue is very thick. And I like, when I'm spreading this glue, I like to use my Princeton Select or a 1-inch flat brush. A 1-inch flat wash brush gives you enough spring back that it will hold and not be loosey-goosey. And you can mix it, your glue up, and spread it, and you get it, because it's so large, you can get it everywhere you need it to be. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I am gonna start laying down a little bit of glue. I'm not going to the edge. I'm just coming on the inside. I'm being very light with it because I want it to glue, but I don't want it to stop the crinkle. I like the crinkle, so I'm going to rely mostly on the sewing. And I'm going to just come in and eyeball this, because I can come out here and move it around while it's still wet and get it to where it's, I think it wants to be the other way. There we go. Okay. And this is upholstery fabric, so it's pretty heavy duty. It's just light in color. I'm gonna right away do this next side, and you can hear how it's quieted down a lot just because of that glue, but it's also still wet. So hopefully as it dries, we will regain some of that crinkle, because I love the crinkle. And then I'm gonna come over this and just kind of line my fabric up. I'm really not too particular about it. And now I'm gonna put mine in my book press, because I have one. But you can always lay stuff on it if you want. Books, heavy books on it works as well. But before I go to my sewing machine, I'm gonna let this dry completely. Okay, so now I feel more confidence to do some unraveling of these threads. Now that I have that edge sewn, this fabric wants to unravel really nicely. I'm not going to pull here if it's caught underneath the stitching that I had done, because that'll just rip it out, but I'm just going to trim it down a little bit and continue on with getting some unraveling done. There's some that was caught under here when I was sewing. I just trim it up. So it feels like we got the primary what's gonna wanna come out, and there we have it. So this feels like where the spine wants to be. I'm gonna check that measurement, and that is in fact 1.5 inches that we had designated. So really going in and using your bone folder onto that paper bag and re-establish that line of the binding is very beneficial. So it looks like it wants to have, this wants to be the outside, so I'm going to allow that to happen. And we have our template, and there is some wrinkling that's happening in the center here. I am not going to worry about that. This is pretty thick and heavyweight material. It's upholstery fabric, and I've experienced that before. So now we can start to think about sewing in our signatures. Let me get supplies out for binding. We need our template, we need our signatures. So these are, we're going to be putting in 2 signatures. I need to go through and make sure I like the way that they look and the alignment. We are going to need our awl, and we're going to need our large-eyed needles, and we're going to need some waxed flax. Now, you can use DMC floss, but it is helpful if you wax it. And you can get one of these wax rounds, and I'm going to show you that here in just a moment. I have a plethora of wax flax, lots of colors, just don't have green for some reason. But you can use DMC floss, but you're going to need one of these waxers to add the wax to it. And I am going to show you in the long run why you should pre-wax your DMC floss. It is just really helpful. You'll also need some kind of trivet, something to press your awl through and into so you don't ruin your surface of your counter. So I have chosen to go with the gray waxy flax. So what I'm doing now is I'm pushing my awl through to pretty close to where the top of the awl is, where the handle is, to get a large hole pre-done through my template so that I can see it really well. And then I'm going to pre-fold this so that I can put it right into where my signatures are and make sure that they line up along with this. You can make a separate template to use inside your signatures, but I'm lazy, I suppose, and just make the one. So you're going to want to line up your papers really well, and then you're going to add your template, making sure you're using the first signature with the first line of holes. And then I like to put mine on the side and punch through the side for these initial holes here, because it seems to go directly into that ridge of the fold. And I have better, it's just much easier. I always then clip it with a large clip. Now on this back signature, I need to make sure that my pages are very lined up because I have that smaller sheet. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with these, just really concentrating. I'm going to make sure that that tissue fabric is very much aligned to get a full 3 holes going through it. And then I'm just going to punch the holes through just like I did on the first signature, laying it on its side, and not actually going down towards into the trivet, making sure it's clipped. I usually clip these before I punch my holes, but for some reason, I'm feeling a little backwards on this day. I'm not quite sure, but I've got that completed. And so now it's time to get ready to sew these signatures into the journal cover. It is time to select a needle. I want a large-eyed needle. I do not want a super sharp point because it's going to come through the thread and split it. So when I am putting my signatures into my journal, I prefer to start with the back. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line my template with my signature, with my spine. And I know that where most of the stitching is where the paper is, and that's what I base that off of. So I'm going to stick it in there like so, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to, did I just say we don't need our awl? We definitely do need our awl. Make sure I'm into that signature space. So this is when we're going to poke our holes for our signatures in through the fabric. Now sometimes I like to come in hold it and push it really through so it's a big hole, because it can be hard to see sometimes. I want to make sure that I can see that hole. Now some people like to clip it. I don't usually clip it, but this one's being a little bit of a hooey here. So, and I'm gonna recheck it. And then I'm gonna push through that first hole, making sure our hole is really wide, and push through the second one. And then I'm gonna come down and then the third set. How much wax flax you need is 2 times plus a little bit. So 2 times the length of your journal plus a little bit. You always want to err on the side of having too much. So with the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, if you start from the inside, then you're going to see your tail on the inside. If you start from the outside, then you're going to see your tail on the outside. And I want to see my tail on the outside. So I'm going to come, and you're always going to start on your center hole. So I'm going to come out here to my middle hole, and then I'm going to put that needle through the middle hole on our signature. I'm going to reestablish it here. There we go. And I'm going to leave myself a bit of a tail. I'm going to go up, you can go down, it doesn't matter at this point. You're going to find your next hole and go through that, and you're going to find the next hole on your journal, on the cover, and you're going to pull that tight, and then you're going to go all the way down to the final hole. Alright, so now the next step is we need to come through this center hole again without splitting the thread that's already there. And that is where one of the reasons why using a blunt nose needle it comes in handy, and where having waxed flax be in handy, because it's less likely to split if it's waxed and you don't have a sharp needle. So I came through the signature, and now I'm going to do the same thing through that same hole without splitting the thread. Now this, we want to be on the opposite side of this long piece than the tail is. We want one on one side and one on the other. Another thing about using wax flax is you can pull, and this will tighten a lot easier. You want to make sure that your signature is in there tight. You want to do a square knot, so just a regular knot, and then reverse. Now I don't know what I'm going to be doing with these, if I'm going to add beads later on when I do the cover, so I have a tendency to leave them kind of long just in case. And there is our first signature, which is our last signature. Not to be confusing. Now I'm going to go ahead and map out another piece for our second signature. Thread our needle again, and I'm going to repeat the whole process, going through the middle, going to the top and to the bottom, and then sewing that, tying that off so that it does not jiggle for this second signature. I hope that has been helpful for you. I will have, as of the time you're viewing this, I will have all the kits ready, and I will have some that are pre-made for sale as well. Thank you for coming along. I look forward to getting to start on 2026's art journaling series that I'm calling Keeping It Spicy. because we're going to be changing things up from month to month. Alright, I wanted to take an opportunity to show you some samples of the journals. You'll have the Keeping It Spicy Art Journal Challenge information sheet along with a suggested starting ideas. These are exactly what I will be working on during 2026. And then you will get the journal itself. I've left the strands long so that you can add beads or whatever you want to do. I did not do anything, finish the cover at all. That is totally up to you. There are 2 signatures. Each signature, the first signature will have some type of illustrated vintage book, some underpaper, maps, and a gel print. The second signature will have some type of fabric from it's tissue fabric, and this was a Technique Tuesday I did. I will link it down in the description box for you if you want to see that video, as well as another gel print, vintage music sheet, and then some more underpaper. Every journal is different, but they will have those bases in them. You will also receive the leftover fabric from your journal, as well as an ephemera kit. This has lots of collage material in it, as well as some ephemera pieces. And that is what comes in each kit. And you can see here it basically runs the same. The tissue fabric piece would be different. Of course, the papers themselves will be different, but they all follow that same kind of premise. So that is an idea of what the journal purchase would include, and I'll have these linked down below. Like I said, it is a limited supply. I have very few of these that I made, but they will be available down. The link to them is down in the description box. Alright, now this is the kit, so it has not been put together. The kit comes again with the Keeping It Spicy Art Journal Challenge information sheet. It comes with 2 pieces of fabric to do the cover with. It comes with the paper bag and the 2 signatures. The same type of papers will be in here, as well as a collage pack. This one's a little bit different than what comes with the art journal. If you purchase the art journal, links to the kits will be listed down below.